'67, May '67, and I was flown to Washington May '87, and out of country and back in several times. But so let's get people the years. Now, we were discussing you were a ufologist before the Army. So, and you had 50 years of service in uniform and out with the U.S. Postal Service. And you met Jacques Vallée when? So let's get your years. And then tell me if you can remember.
I met him in 95, and I met him up here in Connecticut. And, none of it was satisfactory.
Well, he was the one bringing in a lot of the, they say CIA, Army, whatever, S2, it doesn't matter.
No, that wasn't the reason.
Well, Jacques Vallée's had a lot of good stuff. I mean, he liked
Yeah, sure. Nobody denies that. I was on my Project 47 trip across the country. I was on my about fifth or sixth leg, I think it was. And I had been in Montana, and my next stop was Boise, Idaho. Now, I'd been to the University of Idaho at Moscow.
Wow.
Idaho twice.
Moscow, Idaho?
Yes, that's where the University of Idaho is. And that's just a treasure trove of UFO information there as far as newspapers go.
Well, that's a good thing to know. Right?
So I was going to Boise, Idaho, and I was going to try to talk to people in Boise, and I got this call from Ed Stewart out on the West Coast. He said, Vallée's agreed to open his files if you come and see him. I'm saying, Ed, I don't want to do this. I'm going to Boise. It's one of the most important places on my trip here. I've got to go there. He says you got to do it. He says I already talked to Barry Greenwood, and he's going to open up his stuff for Vallée to look at it. You can open up your stuff, and I says, well, okay. So I said, I'm not going to Boise, but it's on your head. And he says, I'll beat the heck out of you if this is useless. And so we met with Dr. Beckman and Ed and I and Vallée asked me what I'm doing, and I said I'm going through newspapers, kind of like Aimé Michel did in France. He knew what that was like, and he says, well, what are you going to do with this information afterwards? And I said, well, you can filter it in a number of different ways, and filter it more than once, different ways. And Ed Stewart had been in Brazil, been born in Brazil, as a matter of fact, and he spoke Portuguese just like Brazilians do. So he understood all the dialects and stuff like that, and so he got talking to Ed about, well, I got a whole bunch of Portuguese publications, I'll send them out to you. And he left, and Beckman stayed there and talked to us for a while. And what is it? Mind control and this other stuff, and I'm not interested in any of that stuff.
Oh, come on. That's my field, too.
So I'm saying this is a completely useless meeting. I could have been in Boise right now in the Historical Society, the newspaper, and a half a dozen other places I wanted to visit and people I wanted to talk to. Here I am. I got I had a lunch with these guys, and absolute. What I got out of it is absolutely zero.
Oh, come on. Are you
and so,
no,
I got zero out of it. And Ed got a few publications that were contemporary Brazilian UFO stuff, and it was really, it was god-awful.
Well,
I can see why Vallée wanted to get rid of him.
Yeah, but Jacques Vallée...
There was there was no reason to meet with him. There was no information that was exchanged that was any good. There were no ideas that were planted that was any good. It was just a useless meeting. And then the next time I met with him, it was another useless meeting.
Now, are we talking about the same Jacques Vallée that was in the movies with Steven Spielberg?
You know.
Really?
I sent him a copy of my book afterwards on the 47 flap. We haven't communicated at all.
But you have the problem with the neuro or the conscious level of the many worlds of the
I don't care about somebody saying that they can control your mind. Get out.
Okay.
Well, that is Beckman's idea. Beckman, I think, had crossed over into silliness at that time.
Now, you remember 1983, we had the assessment, right? And you know we had Star Wars with Reagan. That's all my era. It's your era. So you know if I was working with UFOs and Hynek, we had the other side of that. That's the part he wanted me involved in to tell the story. With people like you.
At this time, Hynek and Vallée had separated. They'd gone their own ways.
I know, but you've got to listen to me because I wouldn't steer you wrong with what my experience is. In 1983 at Fort Meade, our assessment was that Monroe Institute had a valid point. You know, the radio guy with the radio airwaves. And this wasn't MK Ultra in Canada. It wasn't, throwing people out of windows. So, but you got to get that all the, intelligence agencies knew already that we were behind on that from Sputnik and Russia. And the reason we were all interested in the neuro levels with the consciousness is what we're doing now. And we had already seen in the medical field, which I hated, like you hate to go, you're a nuts and bolts person, so you hate dealing with the mind. Well, I came into this life with special gifts and able to twirl fire batons and twirl batons and knives and machetes, and the government recruited me in '67. I didn't know that was the intelligence agency out of Washington, D.C., or NASA, or that NASA was the old CIA. They controlled NASA back then. If you study the history, I didn't know any of that. So it wasn't until 80 to 83, and I went to Rochester, New York, and I saw the UFO, or the big bright light, and then two red things shoot out of it. Now, this was before we had drones, but I was told we didn't have that technology inside uniform, but that's what I was sent after. And J. Allen Hynek knew he'd read my case files in the intelligence agency. So I'm trying to put all this together with you, Jan, because we were serving. And the Army, you were in the Army in '83. Yeah,
but I'm a field artillery guy.
I know.
I mean, I was an intelligence sergeant, but my MOS is meteorology. I am not an intelligence guy. I learned to do that.
Well, so did my husband.
I learned to do personnel. I learned to do safety.
I did too.
They put you where you want to, and then you have to sink or swim. So.
Well, I did the same thing.
I was not an intelligence person. I was an intelligence sergeant in the. I was security and intelligence because they told me that's
Well, they told
we need an intelligence sergeant here, so you're it.
Well, they told me if anybody asked me what I did, I worked for the State Department. I couldn't even tell people who I worked for, in uniform or out. I tried to tell them when I was walking around Hawaii and Navy, and Air Force got me in trouble. I didn't know I was being watched all the time by intelligence officers and stuff. man, you couldn't say shit in or out of uniform with what I did, which I didn't understand because nobody trained me. I basically I had to go on the job training, and everybody was under investigation. So I'd become the security intel officer to get their badges, or ComNav base, or OpNav, or SyncPack fleet. Even the guys that were coming on board, I was the highest person with the highest clearance level at one time in Hawaii. That was blowing my mind. The guy that was going to be in charge of the whole Hawaii island had to go through me to get his clearance. He had a lot to say about that too. So, it's crazy what they do to people at the enlisted level, and they just throw us into jobs and tell us to do it. But see, you can help me with that, because we've got to put this inside CUFOS and all these files, because they're not going to make sense if you follow chain of command only, or if you think you're looking for, say, Project Stargate, or Project Gateway, or Project Magnet, or Project Pegasus. And, people are going to start looking for that because they believe what they see in television. And if you go into intelligence files, you're pretty much FOIA. Why don't you explain that? Because even Freedom of Information Act, you've got to pretty much already know the question as to the key code word, hashtag today. Kennedy, it doesn't mean you're going to find anything, but UFO. But CIA was nice enough to put under UFO files in FBI for a while, FBI files. Did you go grab those while they were open source, the FBI and CIA files?
Yeah, I got files that other people don't even know about. Look, the FBI, and they destroyed a lot of files too. The FBI headquarters files are up on the internet right now. You can look at those things.
And the ones the CIA, and a lot of them in the CIA.
Yeah, the CIA
library.
stuff is up there too, but there's also other files that they had to FOIA to get them out of there. Like there's 1949 Navy document that tells you a lot about what happened in 1948, including the estimate of the situation that everybody is always wild about. You can't talk to UFO people in a common sense area with it. They're so sure they already know all the information. So we do not have the estimate of the situation. But this Navy document that the CIA happened to have, that Brad Sparks got, talks about the conclusions and some of the cases. It's an evaluation by the Ordnance Bureau in the Navy. So that gives you clues about what the heck was going on with the estimate of the situation. And like I told you before at the beginning when we started talking, by having this filing system,
that you've
things
set up.
Things fall into the same date, and you can see relationships that you can't see if you just got a bunch of files that haven't been filed, or even if you're looking at a lot of file folders with you've got to open everything up and look at it, and that's what this helps you do. So there's a lot of things that happened at I'll tell you one. Larry Fawcett, who was a police officer here, he left the force and he decided he was going to do UFOs. And he and Greenwood they worked together on a cause newsletter. So Larry Fawcett found this guy down in Florida, and he had been on the USS Philippine Sea, and